Okay, all right. Let's start with the typical implementation challenges faced world over. So businesses around the world face similar challenges in realizing the project success. Now, what are these challenges? It starts with pretty much selecting the solution first. There's a wide variety of choice available today to um, to choose the right solution is quite a time consuming task, and still organizations don't get it right. They go by ratings or by peers usage, or various other factors influence their selection. Often is the decision maker in the company has an important say in deciding the right solution, but he's relying on the intelligence of the project team or the intelligence of the transformation team to really come up with the right solution criteria and select the right solution. Sometimes selecting the right solution has other considerations as well, like cost and also, of course, the profile of the solution provider. Other typical challenges include defining the scope correctly, articulating the right business case, impacting the assessing the impact on the organization, um, selecting the right implementation partner to implement the desired solution. Other challenges include, high project costs and resource skill set, project planning and mobilization costs, um, just the ability to mobilize and plan the project is time consuming to get it to start on the planned date, get all your resources in. Um, Often companies struggle with executing the right project methodology and governance, project execution and on-time delivery. This is another challenge. How to get the solution implemented to be adopted and realize the benefit business case. Um, Typically also change management and knowledge transfer, and then post go live support, and also is the solution scalable, and are you able to innovate as you go along in future. So these are some of the typical challenges. What is the impact of such implementation? And the implementation is poor implementations really have a long lasting impact on organizations business and culture. Firstly, it's limited ROI. You have a suboptimal implementation, you basically are definitely not realizing your benefit business case. You're really missing an opportunity to have a positive impact on the business. You're compromising on stakeholder experience. You have not gained significantly on efficiency or showing process improvement. Um, Also, often these kind of projects lead to a churn on resources and employee dissatisfaction. There are high business as usual support costs. So to support a poor implementation, then on an ongoing basis, you need to hire significant resources to just support the application. Um, Cost of ongoing training and change management can also be very significant. The ability to scale the solution and support innovation is often limited because the solution architecture to scale and embed innovation is very limited. And then integrating with existing and new enterprise applications is also a challenge. So poor implementation really has a big impact on business in an adverse way. Now, what we are going to do are talk about some of the components of a successful implementation delivery. So let's start with the best solution fit. It's very important that one is able to assess the needs of the organization and prioritize the requirements, and then really make a decision on the right solution. It's also important to understand the value levers. What are the levers that you will actually save on or gain on when you implement such a solution? So that helps you articulate the right business case based on the right assumptions and the right scope. Uh, and then it's very important, even if let's say a solution is a great solution and can give you great business value, what is really important is to understand your current technology landscape. Does it fit well into your existing landscape, or do you need to make changes? What are those changes? What are the prerequisites for this solution to be a good fit? So there is something called as the architecture due diligence that needs to be performed to understand how does the system connect with your existing landscape? How does it replace existing landscape if needed? Or how is it going to scale up with the existing landscape or support the growth of your enterprise? So all this needs detailed architecture due diligence. So highly recommend that uh, pre-planning is done and the right solution fit is established before embarking on an implementation project. Also, then coming next, you need accurate business planning. You need accurate project planning. You need to understand uh, and plan according to your organization needs, what will be the right roadmap of implementation and also of rollouts across your organization. So to do the right roadmap planning and sprint planning for the functionality, rollout planning and wave planning for your supplier enablement, and all this keeping in mind the constraints of your budget. So very accurately, all this should also factor in the budget, and time is essentially a factor of cost. So um, if you have planned your project well and you're sticking to a certain timeline, it has a certain cost. But the minute you extend your timeline, the costs change. So this is something that is really important. Then comes the project mobilization. So let's say you have the right solution, you planned your project well. Now it's important to establish and mobilize the project. So you have to establish the right project governance, the stakeholders, what kind of governance you will have in place for reviewing the progress of the project, who's your executive sponsor, what's the right leadership for the project, um, is the team adequately staffed, the resource have the right skill set, and also looking at the project timeline, what's the dependency on the rest of the organization, do you have availability from the relevant stakeholders to actually furnish you those details or be available to participate as needed as per your project plan. So this is really important to mobilize your project effectively. And then comes the on-time agile delivery. So to implement a project successfully, it's really important to have the right methodology in place for your project. Have the accelerators in place, like the pre-configured solution that you get from the solution provider or your integration partner. Um, have the right accelerators. So again, you select your partner based on the right set of accelerators and the capability they present to implement that solution in an effective way. In deciding the solution fit itself, the implementation timeline can play a significant role. So if a solution can get implemented in 3 months versus another solution that takes 1 year, you would obviously like to go for a solution that's quicker to implement. And then comes the agile sprints. So how you are able to deploy the solution in sprints, increasing the functionality and the complexity, but delivering at least a minimum viable product, and then delivering additional functionality in these sprints. And then risk mitigation. So let's say everything is well planned, but still you got to maintain a risk register and be prepared how to mitigate every risk the project faces. To give you an example, let's say you're in the middle of a project and how the COVID outbreak happened and people had to switch to remote. Was everybody prepared to actually continue the project remotely? So that sort of is an example where you suddenly, or like you see the war right now in Ukraine, how do you mitigate risks that can affect your project? There can also be other risks, employees leaving or key sponsor leaving or other company development. So there are all sort of risks that a project is exposed to. So it's very important to have a risk mitigation strategy and a risk register. Then comes the benefit realization. So if you have done all the four, the right solution, the planning, the mobilization, delivered the project on time, it's very important to ensure that actually the solution is well adopted and the right change management is in place throughout your delivery of the project and the rollouts to effectively transition your organization to adopt the new solution. A lot of it also depends on your solution design. How user-centric is your design? How user-friendly is your interface? How complete is your solution in terms of covering your process needs and business complexity? So all this is part of really the input that is needed to get the right solution adoption. Besides this, continuous training and knowledge management is really key. Firstly, the project team needs to be educated on what is possible with the current solution. And then the project team and the super users, you train the rest of the team, or you train the trainer effectively to train the rest of the organization. So adequate training and knowledge management with the internal organization is really important. And if all that is in place, you are able to really realize the business case and really on all the levers that are there in your original business case. So let's now talk about, in general, about how do you drive sustainable and scalable digital transformation. So what the C-suite needs today is really the ability to drive digitization of all their processes with a scalable architecture that allows for continuous growth and innovation. So effectively, you can think of it in three different pillars. You have to digitize your process. If we are talking procurement, it's digitizing source to pay. You have to drive insights. So you have to embed artificial intelligence or other ways of making the process simple and compliant and making informed decisions. And the key to this is also the right operating model, the procurement talent or the organization talent in general being in place to actually leverage that new technology and to run those digitized processes. So how would an organization approach this? So let's look at the box at the left. So you start with digitizing your process. Now here again, it's important, as explained in the previous slide, having the right pre-assembled minimum viable product, having the right methodology to have the agile sprints for build and for test, and also, being able to then drive the organization to, let's say, re-engineer the process or simplify the process, embed artificial intelligence, other emerging technology that helps you create a better experience and also start to help you make more informed decisions on your process, and embed a level of control and compliance. And this is a continuously evolving space. So this is where comes in the continuous innovation, which you need to have in place, or a program in place that helps you have this innovation in place. It could again be with an implementation partner that supports you on a regular basis, or it could be your internal innovation department, or a combination of both. It's very important, again, to have the right talent in place, the operating model, have as much as possible artificial intelligence to enable your operations or automate your operations, and have a program for continuous learning and knowledge transfer. All this would help you really adopt an agile operating business model and make your talent as a strategic contributor to the business. Another key factor for your project is to have the right design principles. Do you have a design thinking approach? Does your project team have the right experience, or your implementation partner have the right experience? Are you able to bring together the right expertise in the room? Are you able to structure the appropriate governance needed for your project, orchestrate the right accelerators, minimize the time it takes to actually do the benefit realization, and have the ability to have a fast start? So again, it comes down to using accelerators and prepackaged solutions. And how fit for purpose is your solution for current and for future? These are some of the important design principles to consider. Now let's come to methodology. In terms of methodology, here's an example of an hybrid methodology, which is predominantly agile for the solution development or the solution delivery, but has elements of waterfall approach for things like project management, solution architecture, data management, that things that you basically can do in very much defined stages and complete that process, and then actually in parallel do the agile sprints for your solution. So what does really an agile delivery consist of? So you have a prep phase where you mobilize your project, you get together your pre-assembled solution, you define a target operating model, the strategy and vision, and you also have the confirmation of the solution scope. With all this in mind, then you come into the design or the explore phase, and here you are looking at the core day principles, which is basically you have the ability to adopt as much as possible the process and adjust and add process design sprints as needed, and also then have the integration sprints to build additional functionality. The adopting of the end-to-end process and realization, that is then the effect of an effective design, and you are able to adjust and add process and then test that process. And then at some stage, once you are done with all your sprints, you're also able to perform an end-to-end UAT for the complete testing. And then you get to deploy phase, which is really you have the cutover, the end user training, you go live, and then you have a phase where you stabilize the solution and you are doing the rollouts across the globe. Let's look at these elements in a bit more detail. So we touched on minimum viable product. So that is the simplest set of functionality that can be released into production. So I'll give you an example of with a car, for example. What's the minimum viable product you need in a car is actually to probably be able to take you from point A to point B, to be able to drive you around. But then you can add more functionality to it, right? Having a good navigation system, having a good music system, having other comforts. But there is a defined minimum viable product by which it's good enough for it to be ready and be ability to go live as a solution. So then let's talk about the pre-assembled solution. So you start with something that is pre-configured, or you have templates in place, or the solution in these days is mostly on demand, is a software as a service solution. You are able to simply customize with your own data, but the functionality is almost standard, and is something that you can adopt as best in class. So you only need to customize with your organization data. And then look at scrums. So how is the team located, and can also co-locate via virtual to really support the agile sprints? How do you deliver functionality? Do you have a scrum master or a agile project manager in place to help the organization go through these sprints? The core day framework, which I mentioned in the previous slide. So simple principle: adopt as much as possible, adjust the solution where needed, add functionality where needed, and abstain from really trying to customize the solution if not needed. User stories. It's very important again to break down your design into user stories as to really build up a user-centric design. So you keep the stakeholders in mind who are going to be involved in the process, and then design your process around it. How should it make their life simpler or more efficient? And based on that criteria, you design your end-to-end process and you map your solution to the process. And that should really form the basis of your sprint planning. So very important to get your user stories right upfront, the user pain upfront, and have an approach like design thinking to come out with the right desired solution and use case, and then only map this is a software solution to match that process. Then look at sprint iterations and backlog. So once you have your pre-assembled solution, what you're really working towards is sprint planning and having increased functionality in small sprints. So you add functionality in these sprints, and you are able to test them individually and basically keep going live with the digital functionality. Shift left design thinking. So here the approach is to move complexity to the left. So as much as possible, you have the ability to get the right process in from the beginning, um, and then still have the ability to scale on complexity, but as much as possible, incorporate the right solution upfront in your project. And then let's talk about the Agile document set. So here you have the ability to go live and have your documentation in place, so that something that can be easily visible and accessible to the rest of the organization and also your project team while delivering the project. Now, for coming to digital procurement, what could be the accelerators for accelerating your agile delivery? So in these phases, you can bring in a lot of accelerators. So start with procurement diagnostic. So this is really a maturity assessment or assessment of your current process, KPIs, uh, requirements, and then against that, map what is, compare it with what is possible with the new digital procurement solution that you have selected, and then see that where it will take you from your current state of maturity to a future operating model. There's something called as a get fit package. This is basically a set of project tools, again, that help you have the right preparation in place, whether it's your master data, whether it is your resource planning, whether it is, assessing the current tool set. Um, it's making sure that you, when you start the project, you are actually have all these things in place that you need through the duration of your project, so that there isn't a dependency on them that could potentially delay that. So very good feature here again is to really use best-in-class templates, to use a prioritizing requirement tool, and a methodology that I really like to preach here is IBM's version of design thinking. This is really something that I think IBM has honed for user-centric design, and it's many other companies across the globe have their version of it, but something that really makes the design user-centric, and you also have a consensus to prioritize on the right set of requirements, and that's what you then implement in your design. So the other key factor to agile delivery is really to have your pre-configured templates or workbooks, apply Six Sigma principles like failure mode effect analysis to really mitigate your risk in projects, and then have trackers to really have visibility on the progress of your master data, the different mapping of master data objects. Um, these are some of the important things if you are trying to implement a procurement solution. Then comes the deployment part. What is your planning for cutover? What is your readiness for, what's your communication pack for solution readiness? And then also the training delivery. So if you have the right readiness and you have all these things in place, you are able to then roll out also more efficiently. And then comes the run phase, which is basically the go live phase and the phase of actually the solution being deployed and rolled out, and running business as usual. So how are you able to accelerate your benefit realization, your release management of new functionality as it comes available from your software provider, and then tools to really enable the content and your suppliers. So choose an implementation partner that can bring you these accelerators. Right from pre-sales, you should be able to get the right demo of the solution. You should be able to see the business case, the value engineering templates. You should be able to, again, have the benchmarking of what are the kind of metrics, performance level you can achieve with with deploying a solution like the one that you selected, and also really getting insight into industry benchmarks. So where have others in the past succeeded in deploying such a solution? So you benchmark your current performance versus where they stand. And these are often things you will get in the value engineering or the solution selling from your provider. You are able to really go deeper into the solution comparison, the point of view, the case studies, uh, look at ways in which you have flexible commercial models or license terms, options to see that how can your project be self-funding, can anyone guarantee you the desired outcome and make it an outcome-based deal for you. So these are some of the important things you could already help you shortlist at the pre-sales and the sales stage of your project. Then comes the actual project preparation. So let's say you selected the solution and the implementation partner. What kind of training you have in place on the preparation pack to get the project team mobilized and to effectively do the project planning and make the rest of the organization available for the project. Again, talking of the best fit factors, the get fit factors, the data readiness assessment and preparation is an important aspect. Architecture due diligence, as I pointed out earlier, all these are important aspects of your project preparation. So I highly recommend using this waterfall approach for project preparation. So until you are done with project preparation, don't embark on the actual project kickoff and the solution design, the agile phases of delivery. So highly recommend go through the readiness, the architecture due diligence, proper meticulous planning, and then make sure your team is mobilized to actually deliver the project in the best available time. This way you will not only ensure timely delivery, but you will also really save costs, and it'll also help you define the right solution scope and the change impact of whatever your solution you are bringing into the organization. Now, looking at solution delivery accelerators, you could again choose a partner that already or a solution provider that comes with the pre-configured best practice MVP solutions, have templates for different categories, and have the knowledge libraries or have a use case, have the test use case library in place, have strategy for content enablement, and have strategy for training you on the solution and the best practice process. Then comes the go live. What accelerators can you have here is more around how you measure performance and report on key KPIs that your solution is delivering, perform data analytics, have ways to optimize and adopt the solution further, and again have the ability to have continuous innovation and have an innovation or automation garage in place to automate more and more of your solution going forward. So where should you begin your transformation? To begin your transformation, it's very important to understand the strategic needs of an organization. So really important to understand that you're competing in an increasingly complex global marketplace. You need to be profitable. You need to have a strategy for ongoing cost reduction and manage your profitability. You have to manage costs and availability of products for your own supply chain, manage the fluctuating prices, increase focus on innovation, time to market, realize and sustain value from different merger, acquisition, joint ventures. You could need, ways to meet your legal financial safety regulations and also to reduce your legal financial operational risk to the organization. So at the organization level, there are many factors to consider. Then when you're looking at your transformation, again, there are two sides of it. What is more value-driven parameters and also more cost-driven. So can you accelerate the innovation and time to market? Can you improve your products? Can you improve on the competitiveness of your product? Can you drive more better risk and compliance? Or are you looking at more cost driven measures? How can you reduce spend? How can you maximize tax benefit, run more efficient processes? So strategy needs to cover both value and cost. From a procurement point of view, it is very important to really build something that is value driven, sustainable, and collaborative. So if your digital procurement solution does not provide you enough value, then you are not really going to have something that's sustainable and truly collaborative for the organization and your external stakeholders. So it's very important to digitize your procurement with the right scalable architecture and have the solution incorporate an architecture for continuous innovation. You need to eliminate unnecessary transaction and increase automation, and you need to have solutions which is able to do more predictive and collaborative demand management. Only then are you aligning better with the needs of your business. The other significant job here from a procurement leader perspective is to continuously build competitive differentiation to achieve that sustainable growth, design more outcome driven procurement strategy, and design a sustainable supply chain. If you don't do this, you will really not be a sustainable business. The other key area, which I've talked about earlier, and in general, it applies to any sort of transformation, but very true in procurement as well. You have to invest in your continuous skill enhancement of your procurement team and have a agile operating model so that the procurement team is well aligned to your business, and also develop intellectual property that will start to differentiate you and give you a competitive edge. Top priorities of CPOs, these are still the fundamentals of business are same. You have to reduce spend cost while you're looking to modernize your applications. You got to continuously manage supply risk and ensure continuity of supply. You have to have ways to aligning talent more and more with your business needs, and have procurement act as a strategic advisor to business. Improve your analytical and reporting capabilities, accelerate the process of your digital transformation, enable corporate sustainability goals, and actually achieve those goals, as this is where the organizations are really focused on as well, and improve the agility of your procurement team to respond to business needs. And obviously, if you do all the above, you will really have an increased influence on the overall spend in that you manage, and more influence on this business side. Now, what are the drivers for change in digital procurement transformation? So you could have fragmented source to pay processes, you could have current suboptimal experience, you could have saving liquid leakage. There could be many factors. Effectively, you're looking for a new solution that drives more savings, service quality, and innovation, drives more efficient controls. So you can have embedded compliance in your processes are digital, they're more transparent, and you have a way in which it makes the procurement team more effective to respond to evolving business needs. So you're looking at technology to really be an enabler to improve your process and to give you a more professionalized outlook as a procurement team. What are the typical value that you can get from digital transformation? So you are definitely increasing your cost, ensuring that you have cost savings and increasing your operating margin. You are able to expand procurement's effectiveness and influence, and you are able to support company innovation and growth. And let's see, in terms of actual measures, typically you could save between 4 to 15% on cost reduction. You could gain 40 to 60% on your process efficiency, especially in places like your teams processing purchase orders or invoices, or helping in the more tactical tasks. You can really, for increased operational efficiency, you can get procurement to do more strategic stuff because you're running more efficient processes. On every billion spend, you can definitely save on compliance. So you can have more compliance to your contracts, reduced errors from accounts payable or from suppliers sending you duplicate invoices or different rates. So you could save a few percent there. And you could definitely save on better working capital, both for yourself and for your supplier. So you have tools to optimize your working capital, and same for supplier. And as a result, you're able to save additional money there as well. How to really pick the right solution for procurement? So there are various parameters, and some of the key ones to really look at are to see the installed customer base and the analyst rating of the solution you're looking at. Uh, I would always recommend looking at the leaders in the right of, let's say, the Gartner's Magic Quadrant or most of the analyst ratings. Look at the one that's really the lead or the top 3 or 4 solutions that you would like to compare. Look at their market momentum, not just how they are now, but how they are been progressing through the quarters, through the years. Um, Look at the functionality in detail, and also as much transparency you have on their solution roadmap. That could be really useful to decide what they don't have but could have in their roadmap. And their actual user experience or the ease of use of the software is a big parameter. How much emerging technology have they embedded in their application? Are they able to have increased automation, increased intelligence, uh, increased use of other emerging tech like blockchain or Internet of Things? Um, so again, it really helps to decide whether is this something that is a scalable solution for you. Most solutions today would need to have a good mobile application or mobile interface, mobile app. That's really fundamental in terms of user adoption as well. A good supplier network and marketplace presence is also key, because that also drives adoption with your suppliers. If you do not, if you choose a solution that's not well adopted or doesn't have the presence with suppliers, it will really increase your efforts on supplier and your content creation. Integration capabilities, integration in general is becoming easier with most procurement solutions, but it's very important to see the ability to integrate solutions with your enterprise applications. So deciding a solution that offers great integration capabilities is definitely going to give you an edge. Manage complexity and scale. This is really important. So don't just go by user interface alone or ease of use, but see if the product functionality really um, helps you scale the solution, the architecture of the solution. Does it allow you to scale? Let's say you could be a large organization, multi-ERP, or in future you will acquire other companies with other ERPs, or you could be able to sell a certain business unit out of your current organization. How do you manage that sort of complexity and scale with your current application? Implementation time is another key factor. I talked about this earlier. Costs, again, license cost alone should not be the only parameter, but it's all this ultimately leads to more effective total cost of ownership. So license cost is a significant factor, but when you combine it with all the other factors, that's when you really should make a decision. The ability to have the right application support, that is also quite important. And then, of course, what the risk management with each of the companies, how well they manage risk, and how much is your risk covered when you are choosing a certain solution. Are you choosing a company that's too small in size, and or you don't really have the confidence on the leadership, or are you really choosing a product that's well tested in the market and offers you least risk as it's a stable organization? Then going into more detail in your transformation, it's again establish the right target operating model for your transformations, define the vision and the strategy, the governance model, the organization, the capabilities of your procurement department, the processes that you want to have, the technology that you will leverage, to drive those processes, the data, and the policy procedures, and ultimately, most importantly, the stakeholder management. How will you deliver that consistent user experience to your stakeholders, internal as well as external? So all that forms a very important aspect as well, to have the right target operating model that you saw in the three boxes of the elements of digital transformation. Finding the right strategy that drives a balance between, the right set of user experience as well as the right set of compliance. So if you're going to make your process too complex, but at the same time, you are expecting better user experience, so you need to have the right balance between control and compliance, and also have the right approach, so that you are really defining a well-driven strategy for buying, and in that has enough control but does not overburden your end users, and that will over time deliver the right set of user experience and help you drive um, better value and quicker cycle time. So now let's go into the details of some of the aspects I mentioned earlier, the assessment. So how would you assess for the business before you get into deciding the right solution? So this is where comes the procurement maturity test. So here you are really assessing internally the current organization, the process, interviewing the stakeholders, the maturity on different sub processes, um, benchmarking against what's a good practice, benchmarking against your industry, best in class, and also in terms of the functionality of current systems and process support, and also comparing your KPIs against what would be a best in class or a more aligned or an agile company. So see where you stand. And then you are really also doing in more detail your own gap analysis and prioritizing your requirements, and looking at in comparison of solutions as well, to see which solution really meets the best in terms of your requirements. If possible, you're able to have solution prototypes in place. Uh, if you are able to do all this, then with the procurement solution, you are able to firstly embed the right complete processes. So an example here is of a best practice source to pay process. Now, how can you fully embed this into the solution that you are selecting? Does your solution offer all these components? Are you able to design a process that's as complete and closed loop as possible? Or the solution doesn't cover all of this? A lot of the industry today is also again moving towards best in class. So because the ease of integration exists now, you're able to have best in class solutions for different aspects of source to pay, and you can still run a very efficient source to pay process with different tools. So that's again an important consideration. But ultimately, whichever set of tools you have or a single solution you have, make sure it has the ability to have the right process coverage for you. If you go a bit deeper into the process, you're able to again test the solution and see whether it does meet your requirements at level 4 of process as well. So see the ability to tailor your solution to meet your process needs at level 4. It's going to be important as well. If you look at the B2B side, your solution should at minimum really cover all these areas. The ability to raise requisitions, approve requisitions, send purchase orders out, acknowledge your orders, have shipping notices, have the ability to do good receipts, invoicing, matching, invoice discounting, invoice payment, also link to external marketplaces to support all the different buying channels you have, to manage your tail spend, to enrich your content with internal catalogs. So these are some of the important things to consider. Again, talking about the buying channels, these are some of the typical buying channels that you should have in a self-service solution, whether there's catalog or free text, and have embedded compliance built into them. have invoice only, have also got e-forms to customize for your different categories or subcategories, and also support service procurement. The value of different buying channels is that the more it's automated and self-service, the lower is the involvement of the procurement team, and meaning you are getting a more efficient process and a more compliant process. The more you involve ad hoc requests, the more you are actually getting towards an inefficient process, and the involvement of sourcing team is more. So the idea is to move more towards self-service and automated procurement. This we covered the target operating model, so I'll skip this. And let me give you an example of an assessment for a customer to bring the assessment to life. So here you see an example of a customer who has got some components of an SAP Ariba solution implemented and other components that not implemented. And where they have it implemented, what are the gaps compared to a leading practice? So you may have different components implemented, but you're only utilizing 10%, 20% of the solution. So you're not running an optimal solution, even though you've got these components. So this is an example. This is just highlighting from the previous slide. So you've got these modules in this example, and you are using some of the modules, but look at the ones in white means you're not using or running those processes in using these technology that you have at your disposal. And then you're looking at other areas in yellow, which means you are using the tool, but it's really suboptimal. You could drive better usage. Better usage would mean more spend, more adoption, more savings or more value or return on your solution. And then you've got areas where it's blue is where you ideally would like to be. So that's at least the standard usage, or you're really optimizing the usage of your tool. So as we saw for this example, for this customer, you have a tool, but it's really suboptimal usage compared to best practice. So huge potential to save. So if you were to optimize the solution here, compare it with best in class, you would realize that you can really achieve a lot more on all the different parameters, KPIs. And what that would mean is that you're going to save an X amount of money if you were to optimize and also implement the remaining solutions. So there's huge potential to save money if you implement the right solutions. Now, again, this is giving our example as inside Plum, but if you look at any system integrator you would like to choose, there's some things that you should consider is really what is the value that your system integrator brings, what is the technology that they're able to offer you. Now there are a lot of emerging technologies out there, a lot of good technology, especially the top 100 emerging tech players. Now if your partner doesn't offer or is not partnered with those companies, you're really missing out on other potential solutions who are probably cheaper as well as more agile, as well as probably have better technology. So really important to consider that. Consider the ability that does your provider offer you innovation garage engagement, sustainability redesign, platform as a service, ability to do maturity assessment for you, ability to help you with your data prep and migration, training and change management. Also, can they offer you additional procurement talent? Can they offer you outcome-based deals? Is financing the project an option? How many implementation man-days is needed? Again, depends on the competency of the delivery team, the accelerators they use for implementation. Are you getting certified consultants for your for the solution that you are deploying? And so effectively, what's your break even with your partner and your desired solution? Is it less or more? And then obviously it's the sooner you break even and the lesser the cost, the more is your ROI. So what's the kind of return you are getting from your system partner and your solution partner? So that's really where I think we can end this session. It just I will take another maybe a couple of minutes just to give you an overview of Inside Plum. Uh, this is a company I founded back in 2020 in London, and now with Dubai as its global headquarters. The vision of Inside Plum is to really address the gaps in the procurement industry and to make technology more accessible to companies of all size. Our differentiation really is to bring in more and more technologies available today to the customers, and again upskill the skills in procurement, create net new talent in procurement, and bring it all under one roof so that procurement around the world can modernize quickly.